One game system that is part of the Neo Geo family and not shown a lot of love and often overlooked these days is the Neo Geo Pocket. Even though the system's life cycle was short-lived, it did have a place in the gaming world. With great brand recognition due to the success of the Neo Geo arcade and home systems, catalog of popular IPs, and popular beloved characters, which seemed like a recipe for success, why did this system ultimately fail? So let's take a deeper look into the Neo Geo Pocket from its release in 1998 to its discontinuation in 2001. This is the story of the Neo Geo Pocket. So starting out in this video, we have to understand that there were two versions of the Neo Geo Pocket. The Neo Geo Pocket Original and the Neo Geo Pocket Color. While specs of the two systems are similar, the Neo Geo Pocket Color had a colored screen and also featured a link cable if you had two Neo Geos in the same game and you wanted to play head-to-head or two-player. So first of all, we'll discuss the Neo Geo Pocket Original. The Neo Geo Pocket was indeed a notable piece of gaming hardware despite its relatively short lifespan. As SNK's first foray into the handheld market, it featured a monochrome display and a design that was praised for its quality build and comfortable ergonomics. The launch price of the Neo Geo Pocket was $69.95. Unfortunately, it had a limited release, and competition that was established from handhelds like the Game Boy Color hindered its success. The Neo Geo Pocket did have a few standout titles though that showcased SNK's strength in fighting games. As far as design and display, the Neo Geo Pocket had a 2.6-inch monochrome LCD screen. While not as advanced as color displays, it was praised for its clarity and sharpness in displaying the games. Some of those notable games were Samurai Showdown, a well-regarded fighting game that translated the popular arcade series to a handheld format with very impressive results. Alongside of that, another strong title was the King of Fighters R1, another strong entry in the fighting game genre, bringing the renowned King of Fighters series to a portable platform at the time. But with the lack of the original Neo Geo Pocket's limited library and lack of color display, there were significant drawbacks compared to its competitors like the Game Boy Color, which dominated the handheld market at the time. So SNK figured we need a strategy. And while the Neo Geo Pocket was more powerful than the Game Boy Color, due to its poor sales, SNK quickly transitioned to the Neo Geo Pocket Color, which featured a color screen, better overall capabilities, allowing it to better compete with other handheld systems of the time. So the Neo Geo Pocket Original ended in 1999, but not without having compatibility in mind for the upcoming Neo Geo Pocket Color, which was a smart move given the transition from monochrome to color. One thing to note with the Neo Geo Pocket Color, it was able to play all Neo Geo Pocket black and white games in their original monochrome form. This was a feature that allowed users to continue enjoying their old games and libraries even after upgrading to the new system. The Neo Geo Pocket Original can play games designed for the Neo Geo Pocket Color, but these games will appear in monochrome. This in itself provided some level of forward compatibility, albeit with a less vibrant experience. So the Neo Geo Pocket Color was SNK's significant upgrade from its monochrome predecessor, the Neo Geo Pocket. The Neo Geo Pocket Color featured a 2.7-inch color LCD screen with a resolution of 160 by 152 pixels, providing a vibrant color experience compared to its monochrome predecessor. And as stated earlier, backwards compatibility was a huge factor with the Neo Geo Pocket's library. This allowed players to use their existing monochrome games on the new system, which helped ease the transition and made it a smart buy. And if you were coming from the old Neo Geo Pocket, the new Neo Geo Pocket Color boasted a diverse library of games, including many updated versions of Neo Geo Pocket titles with enhanced colored graphics. Some of these games were hits like Samurai Showdown 2, King of Fighters R2, Metal Slug First Mission, and so forth. The Neo Geo Pocket Color offered a whole diverse library of games. There were puzzle games, sports games, fighting games, pachinko games, and actually did very well in Japan. Released in March of 1999 in Japan and later that year in August of 1999 in North America and October in Europe, the Neo Geo Pocket entered a market heavily dominated by Nintendo's Game Boy Color, which had established a strong foothold in the vast game library and widespread consumer acceptance. At the time, the original Game Boy already had a 10-year jump on the Neo Geo Pocket and Neo Geo Pocket Color. As far as the Neo Geo Pocket sales figures, in Japan, by the end of 1999, SNK sold over 25,000 Neo Geo Pocket Color systems in Japan. Despite being a relatively small number, this indicated a dedicated fan base was definitely in Japan, in SNK's home country. In Europe, the Neo Geo Pocket Color fared even better with over 100,000 units sold by the end of 1999. This was a relatively strong showing considering the region's competitive market. and in North America by May 2000, the Neo Geo Pocket held a 2% market share in the North American handheld market. This was a small fraction compared to the dominance of Nintendo's Game Boy Color, but it was significant enough for SNK America to achieve a profit. The US launch of the Neo Geo Pocket Color made its debut in the United States through an exclusive launch on the eToys website in 1999. At the time, this approach was somewhat unconventional, but it did allow SNK to reach early adopters. After the eToys launch, the Neo Geo Pocket Color was accompanied by 6 titles with plans to release a total of 20 games by the end of the year. The games were sold in distinctive plastic snap lock cases, which were a notable feature in the initial release. The pricing of the Neo Geo Pocket was set at $69.95 and was available in 6 colors. That way people could kind of put their own flavor on what color they wanted. And with some early success in the US, in the first 2 months following its release, the Neo Geo Pocket Color sold a commendable 25,000 units in the US. This quickly demonstrated a positive reception and interest among consumers. In SNK's attempt to keep the momentum going with the Neo Geo Pocket Color, it was advertised on US television. The company invested over $4 million in television advertisements for the 1999 holiday season. And the ads aired on major channels like MTV, Comedy Central, Cartoon Network, aiming to reach a broad, diverse audience. And besides the TV advertising, you could find the Neo Geo Pocket Color at major retail chains such as Walmart, Best Buy, Toys R Us. And while the Neo Geo Pocket Color had an impressive start, it did face several challenges that ultimately led to its decline. At the beginning, the Neo Geo Pocket Color launched with 14 titles, which was a notable achievement at the time. The strong start in both the US and Japan showed there was an interest in the Neo Geo Pocket and set a high bar for the system's debut. But there were some serious problems behind the scenes that plagued the Neo Geo Pocket Color. One of these things was retail support. Despite the promising launch, the Neo Geo Pocket faced low retail support in the US. When the Neo Geo Pocket Color first initially launched on the website, this lack of availability and people being able to visibly see the console in stores kind of declined in its sales. And behind the scenes with SNK America's management, they struggled with poor communication between third-party developers. This really hurt SNK's diversibility in games. And as the old saying goes, he who has the best games wins, as in the case with Nintendo. And speaking of Nintendo, they had the handheld market on lock with the Pokemon franchise. And coupled with the 1-2 punch, they were right around the corner with releasing a 32-bit version of a handheld, the Game Boy Advance. And even in Japan, Neo Geo Pocket Color was coming under fire with Bandai's WonderSwan handheld. And the final blow was the financial trouble SNK was in. We have to remember that SNK was experiencing financial difficulties even before the Neo Geo Pocket Color's launch. This came from the Neo Geo MVS arcade system and the Neo Geo AES home system. The MVS arcade system was suffering from its challenge with other arcade games running 3D hardware at the time. And the AES home system was having problems competing with the PlayStation 1 and the Saturn at the time. So ultimately, the perfect storm, with low retail support in the US, the developers' poor relationship with third-party developers, Nintendo putting pressure on them with the Pokemon series and the Game Boy Advance right around the corner, and the financial failures of the MVS arcade system, along with the AES home Neo Geo system, SNK ultimately went bankrupt and were acquired by Azure, an American pachinko manufacturer. And the pachinko manufacturer didn't support SNK's video game business at all. They were more into pachinko machines. And with the lack of support of being a video game company, on June 13, 2000, Azure decided to quit the North American and European markets, leading to a total discontinuation of the Neo Geo Pocket Color and other SNK products in the regions. But despite this, Neo Geo Pocket and other SNK products continued to be available in Japan. However, it was short-lived. On October 30th, 2001, that marked the end of SNK's video game hardware and software production, including the entire Neo Geo line and family. So where does that leave the Neo Geo Pocket today? Well, despite its financial struggles and eventual discontinuation, the Neo Geo Pocket Color remains a respected and influential system in gaming history. I mean, it came out with unique features at the time. It had a strong lineup of games, and its overall design innovations, being the first handheld to have an analog stick, have earned it a lasting place among gaming enthusiasts and collectors all over. The Neo Geo Pocket Color might be said by some to be ahead of its time, with the ability to offer high-quality arcade experiences on a handheld platform. That wasn't a thing back in the day. And we gotta look at handheld platforms. It's not like today where you can walk around with a Steam Deck with a AAA title or the Switch with awesome graphics. Back then, when you had a handheld, you knew you weren't getting the best version of a game, but the game had to be strong enough to keep your attention and stay fun and interesting. Why do I say the Neo Geo Pocket Color is ahead of its time? Well, lastly, you have systems like the PAL Kitty. These are popular lines that, in my opinion, are influenced off the Neo Geo Pocket. They run multi-emulation, they come with a 5.5 inch screen, and they're capable of running at 720 nowadays. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. The popularity of retro handhelds right now is overwhelming, and they're perfectly priced at about the same price the Neo Geo Pocket Color was. So at the time, there was definitely a demand of the Neo Geo Pocket Color. So with that said, guys, that was pretty much the story of the Neo Geo Pocket and the Neo Geo Pocket Color. Gone, but definitely not forgotten. And that's going to do it for this video, guys. But let me know in the comments, do you have a Neo Geo Pocket? If you had it in real time, was it hard to get one? Does it hold a special place in your gaming collection? In my opinion, guys, I thought the Neo Geo Pocket was awesome. For the simple fact, the innovations with the analog stick, tight responsive controls, and a great gaming library. And SNK had one of the best libraries littered with hidden gems that you can still play today. That's going to do it for this video, guys. A like and a subscription is always welcome. And with that, take care of yourself, protect your inner peace, God bless you, and we'll catch you on the next one.